to another episode of, let's see if I can do it, Hollywood Critics Association Moon Knight After Show. Man, that is a mouthful. You'll see we are missing our lovely Andrea, but she's going to pop on. She's got to finish something up, and then she will be here if she can. So fingers crossed. Before we dive into this amazing finale, I should say season 1 finale, because Marvel has tweeted out and made it clear there will be a season 2, which has me so excited because I love these people and I love Oscar Isaac and I love this show. And I know we are all on the Stephen Grant bandwagon here. We love him. We've actually been on it from the beginning, pretty much. So anyways, before we dive into it, Michael, why don't you let everyone know who you are and where to find you?
Hello. So yes, as Tessa said, I'm Michael J. Lee. And that's, you can find, oh, see, I almost had it. I almost had it.
It was so close.
It's so early. But yeah, I write for That's in LA, We Live Entertainment, The Nerds of Color, and you can find me at I am Michael J. Lee on all socials. So yeah.
Awesome. And Josie?
Hi, name's Josie at the Josie Marie, which you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd. I am the founder of Film Poser, so you can find us there, and also write for a couple of outlets. So follow the Josie Marie. There we go. To find out what those outlets are.
It's so hard.
Yeah, it's the mirroring.
It's the mirroring. And I'm Tessa Smith. You guys can find me everywhere at Mama's Geeky. Now I'm terrified. Is it this way? Hey!
Oh, 1 for 3. So
yes!
Yeah, at least.
On the finale, we got it.
Yes. You guys can find me at mamasgeeky.com. I already have a whole article about something that happens in this episode because I had to write about it immediately. But let's talk about it before we get into the episode. I got to let you guys know spoilers. Spoilers. If you haven't been around, listen, we're going to talk spoilers, okay? Lots of them. So the first thing I want to talk about is our overall thoughts. Now, this was the shortest episode, which is kind of crazy to have the finale be the shortest episode, but I think it works with this finale, and I think it helps them stick the landing here. Josie, how did you feel about the shorter runtime and the finale overall?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember people being nervous, including myself, because there was just so much we were dealing with. And I think it worked in its favor. There was no room for error. We got what we needed. Everything got resolved. And not like in a tight bow. I think it was like a perfect ending. It felt like a season finale. And I think that's all we could ask for.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. It was very nerve-wracking when you go and, especially because 44 minutes, at least 5 of that is credits, and you're like, oh no, what are they going to do? Michael, how did you feel about the shorter runtime and then the finale overall?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Josie. I think if they went on for an hour or even longer, that would have been just too much. It wouldn't just, it would have just felt more like filler if they just did too much. So I think the shorter runtime it benefits from having a shorter runtime.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So let's talk about how this starts off. Of course, we see Harrow. Like, this was so sad. Harrow's like people like pulling Mark's body out of the thing. I was like, oh, Mark, he's like dead, and I hate this. And then they take the scarab from him, and they're all like, we're horrible people. We're gonna go judge a whole bunch of people. That's not the words they use, but it felt like that, And he's like, I wrote the quote down. He said, "Who wants to heal the world? It's not what you're doing here, buddy." But or he didn't take the scarab. He took Ammit's thing, and then Layla takes the scarab, which I thought was very interesting. I like how she cried for like a second and then was like, all right, I got it. Right. Yes, exactly.
Snap out of it.
Yes, Josie.
Like, there's bigger things to worry about, basically.
Yeah, like, right. Of course, process your emotions, process your feelings. You just lost someone, but also let's stop the end of the world and then get to grieving.
Yeah, she's like, all right, I'm just grabbing the scarab. I'm going to do what I got to do. I absolutely love that about her. I love Layla in this entire episode.
I know we're going to get into it, but
yeah.
I shed a tear.
I know. She's been amazing throughout the season. She's someone they never dropped the ball on. I think they've showed how badass she is from the start, but they really raised her to a whole new level. And yes, we will get there, but I was just like, man, they did so well with her character in this episode. But Michael, how did you feel kind of the kickoff of this, right? Like, Harrow's got Ammit's thing. They're going to go judge people. And Layla was like, I'm sad, but I got work to do too. So how did you feel about that as an opening of the episode?
I felt it was right because after spending so much time with Mark in that one particular episode, it's nice to see Layla get her moment and establish basically what's going to happen later on, and it works for her because, like I said, she was just not so much of a presence in the last episode, so we get to see her in a badass mode, prioritize everything's like yes. Mark's gone or Steven's gone because she has to mourn a little bit, and then she has to say, like, you know what, I had to take care of this more important thing because the fate of the world is like right in my hands, literally. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was so good. And Josie, how did you kind of feel about their opening? Because Michael makes a good point. We did kind of even have Harrow last episode, but we really didn't have Harrow last episode. He was this other doctor version of Harrow whenever we saw him. So how did you feel about kind of catching up on what's going on in maybe the real world? I still don't even know, but
yeah, no, I definitely felt like, okay, we're back to it. So it's like, you feel like you're seeing an old friend again. It's like, okay, we're getting into it. But also like, I felt like Taweret because as soon as I saw Layla, I was like, Layla! But also just them pulling the body out and just Mark just stayed floating there, which is very sad. But it was nice seeing Layla just spring into action. Like I felt safe.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
that water's surprisingly shallow too.
I know, right?
What?
Like we saw him floating around pretty low a couple episodes back after he got shot, and now he's like clearly fine. But yeah, no. Speaking of Taweret, this was so Marvel. Like having her literally talk through dead bodies was one of my favorite things. And Layla's just like, "What's up?" And she's like, "I'm talking to you through dead bodies, okay? Like get over it." I was like, "I love you so much." Just going from body to body as Layla's like, "No, I'm trying to get hair," and she's like, "You can't do it yourself," which I really enjoyed that tie back to the last episode where Taweret said that they kind of had this plan that she was going to go see Layla and tell her you got to get Khonshu. But then when we didn't see it last episode, I was like, how is this going to play out? Talking through dead bodies, best decision. Michael, how did you feel about Taweret's way of speaking to Layla? Oh, is he frozen?
I think my connection.
There you are.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh,
yes.
No.
So what was the question? I'm sorry. Hi.
Oh yeah,
yes.
No, you're fine. Of just about Taweret's way of speaking to Layla through dead bodies.
I like how she just treats it like a nonchalant, like everydayness sort of thing, because she just happens to stick hands in people's chests. Now she just goes from body to body. So I was like, this is normal for me. You know, why are you guys acting like it's all weird? Come on, don't. But it's I think it's an excellent way just to how to communicate within that world between the afterlife and the real world or whatever this world is, because like we said, we don't know, we can't really trust anybody. But she makes it fun, she makes it light despite the gruesomeness of talking from the dead. But it's fun just to see how Marvel can play around with that. And for me now, I think about it's like a little teaser to a later movie, just like we're gonna if you're gonna see dead people, you can watch even more dead people in another movie. So yeah.
Josie, how did you feel about? I mean, we've said it before. We love Taweret, and I know you love her too. How did you just feel about this wave for coming in this episode?
It was just funny seeing her pop into different bodies throughout the episode, just with her voice specifically. A little unconventional, but I was like, this is the plot point we need right now, so let's go with it.
I know. I was like, I did kind of miss not like see her very, 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 very briefly in this episode. But she's a part of it. And what did you think when she offered Layla? I for some reason, I had never crossed my mind that Layla was her avatar.
Yeah, for me, I remember for some reason I thought Ammit was going to possess her at the beginning of the season, because I thought that would be an interesting, like, having Moon Knight having to fight Ammit through his wife. But I like where it went with this because of what we got. It was so much nicer. So it wasn't too much of a surprise, but I was still so joyful at like where it went.
Yeah. Oh no, that would have been interesting to have him have to fight his
I
wife.
was like, is this gonna happen? Because that would be kind of crazy.
Mean. Very
mean and crazy. Just him having to like face everything in his past, but we got that in the last episode, so he didn't need to suffer anymore.
I know. I was like, phase 4 can slow down a little bit. Like it's traumatic and it's horrible, but that would have been a little too far almost. Michael, how did you feel about when Taweret was like, "Hey, you want to be my avatar?" Oh no!
I thought that was funny, honestly. No. Am I back?
No, you are back now. You were frozen for like half a second, but we can hear you. So
I don't know what's going on. It's so yeah. I thought it was funny. As Josie was saying, it was a nice. How do I put it? It was just nice to see her not do something too twisty, but not something too like a betrayal of the character. It's just more like, oh God, it's just way too early for me. No, but what I was thinking, it's great to see something not like we don't have to hate the character anymore because of a twist. It's more this is going to be serving justice sort of to your fanage or your loyalty to this character. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I have one small complaint about this episode, and it's what happens next. Oh no! I have one small complaint, and it's so they get to the Chamber of the Gods, right? And Harrow comes in with all his people, and the other avatars there are like, and he's like, what does he say? He says like, "You're judges, not warriors." And then we don't see the fight. I was kind of bummed. You get I was like, I want more action.
They dropped like flies.
They did. I know.
I'm like, these are the gods.
Right. I suppose that's the point, right? They are not able to go up against Harrow but I was still like, all of a sudden they're just on the ground. I don't know, Josie, did you feel like they were missing something when they didn't give the fight, or you think it was fine?
Yeah, that moment definitely felt like why it's one of those moments that you're like, why are they there then? And it's kind of sad because you introduced them and then we didn't really get to see. I wanted to see more.
Yeah,
that's more or less how I felt, but it was also necessary, so it needed to happen. But you still feel like that.
Yeah, it was definitely like, I wanted to fight. I wanted, like, last episode really didn't have a lot of action. Now they definitely make up for it very quickly after this, and we get tons of amazing action. But in that moment, Michael, did you kind of feel like you wanted to see the gods go up against Harrow? Yeah. Was it like, did you feel like it was missing something too, or were you kind of like,
Well, I'm kind of on the fence about that. From when we first see them, they're all powerful, right? They can cast judgment, they can encase Khonshu in stone. But at the same time, there's like, we don't want to fight, we don't get involved. So there's that arm's distance sort of thing. And as a result, I can understand why they would drop like flies, and they just would be so easily defeated by Ammit. So yeah, I didn't think I would need to see that kind of fight, because if they're going to drop that easily or fall that easily, it kind of doesn't feel like it serves a purpose, and it would just extend the scene or the episode too long. So yeah, It was good that we didn't get too much of that.
That's very true. That's a good point. Like I said, they do make up for it with lots of action. But before we get into that, so Layla's in there and she finds Khonshu, smashes his thing. I always forget what it's called. It's not a statue. They call it like a Oba something. But either way, she smashes it. And I love how Khonshu is kind of like, hey, you can be my avatar now. And she's like, no. Again with Layla standing up for herself, and is just like, you ruined Marc's life. You made it a nightmare. You're not taking me over. Like, sorry, figure out how to do it yourself. I did this part. I freed you. Go on your merry way. Michael, how did you kind of feel about Layla kind of putting her foot down and telling Khonshu no?
I thought that was a great moment. It just stayed true to her character. It just stayed true to her character. Basically, throughout this episode, seeing her in action, stand up for herself, very capable. So it just really benefits. It really benefits for us to see how she doesn't accept him. Like, oh, I've seen Marc in action with his power, but at the same time, I've seen Marc in action with his power. So
Yeah.
It's just so great to see her to stay true to her human form, and how much that will pay off later on.
Yes, exactly. Josie, how did you feel? I was so like, yes, Layla in that moment. I adore her.
Yeah, it was true to character, as you mentioned, and I liked the aspect that you can choose to say no.
Yeah.
Like throughout the season, I don't know why it never occurred to me that you had a choice.
I love that.
So I like that they emphasized that in that moment. And yeah, it was just perfect because then we got what we got next.
I know, it was so great. But honestly though, like, this is so Marvel because they go so back and forth with stuff to throw your emotions all over the place. Because before we even get into that, they give us Marc in the field of reeds, and he's like standing there and he's like, it's quiet. And Taweret's like, it's quiet and peaceful. Like, this is what you wanted. And then he's like, but what about Steven? And I was like, oh, Marc, you know? And like, I just love that he's willing to literally give up eternal peace to go and save Steven. And he goes, and then he has this little like whole speech thing, which of course Marvel makes fun of, which is so funny. Throws that joke in there. Like, Steven's like, I wasn't so little. But they have this moment between the two of them, you know, when he literally says, you were my only superpower. Like, you've been my superpower from the beginning. You've been there with me. And it really solidifies that relationship between them that they didn't really have at the beginning of the season. You saw them kind of butting heads at the beginning of the season. Josie, how did you feel just about this whole moment in the sand with the two of them? And at first they're both gone, and you know that's not going to last because it's Marvel.
Yeah, I love their little frozen moment with Elsa and Anna.
Yes.
I like how they held hands and how the heart kind of turned kind of golden, because it was just a nice little bookend to their relationship and how far they come in this season, and seeing them like fix that because we know other things are looming. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that was pretty much. I just wrote down Steven because I was so happy to see him again. But it was kind of sad seeing Marc freeze up again, even though we knew it was going to be fine. But still, it was sad.
It's a lot that the whole like Oscar Isaac's face being frozen is like too much. I have PTSD. But yeah, it was so great. Michael, how did you feel about this moment between Marc and Steven?
For an episode that is like really action packed, it's nice to see how it balances out with, you know, a little emotion, you know, these little tender moments. So just, I can't add anything more because Josie's put it perfectly, but yeah, it's nice that it's not all action. So it's just drags out a little bit with too much action.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of this so then you can enjoy what happens next, sort of thing.
Yes. And I love how Taweret, when she comes to like help him out, she's like, Osiris, you big softy. Like, I was like, that's just such a great little line, you know? I was so Taweret too. And then when they come back alive, like the fact that Khonshu immediately like knows, he's like, Marc, and goes to him because he's in that little fight with Ammit, which was like a tease. But how did we feel about Ammit's design? And we get to see her. What did you think, Josie? You go.
I wrote it down.
You got something to say.
I literally wrote it down. Where is it? Yeah, I like Ammit's design. I just loved her. I loved how she looked. I did not look up the voice actress, but I was very happy with just the design in general, like the way she sounded, the way she looked, just everything. It was so nice to see, especially considering how we started with Khonshu, then we got Taweret, and now Ammit. Like the way the designs evolved, it was nice to see.
Yeah, I thought she looked amazing, and I loved her hair, I loved her face,
the way she moved, her mannerisms, like she felt like a person, so to speak, like a figure, like a real thing.
Yeah, Michael, how did you feel about Ammit?
Yeah, I would have to agree too that I like how she moved, the overall look and design of, you know, I don't even know what it is, like an alligator face or something. But it was just very very creepy, and just
reptilian.
Reptilian. There you go, reptilian. So the costume design, just the way she moved and everything, the way she sounded, it was just, it fit basically. I liked it.
Yeah, she looked amazing. And something I wasn't expecting either, and I'd like to know you guys' thoughts on this, is when she comes out and she talks to Harrow and she says that his scales weren't balanced. That blew my mind. I never even thought that would be a case because he's sitting here judging all these people. Feels very hypocritical of him.
Yeah.
In true villain style, of course, right? But for her to even say like, oh, it's because of your future and what you're going to do serving me. And then she's like cool with him being her avatar. And it's like, your whole thing is you're going to kill people because of stuff they're going to do. And you're going to look the other way because this guy's going to be doing stuff for you. I love that plot point because it really solidifies them as like, oh, they're the villain in this case for me. Michael, how did you feel about that?
I thought that worked. The whole idea of, judging before the crime and how it turns out he's also being kind of judged before the crime. It fits because there's that hypocriticalness, but in a way it works because it's just not so, traditional or not what is expected of a film like this. So, yeah.
Yeah. Josie, how did you feel about that? I was mad for a second. I was like, are you kidding me? You're judging all these people?
I thought they went into a really good ethics class at that moment. Because it would make sense that the one person that's judging everybody is because they feel unfulfilled with themselves and where they're probably headed. And just that whole hypocrisy just solidified his character as actually a very good villain in the MCU.
Yeah. Well, they always say, right, villains don't know they're the villains, but he like legit knew his scales weren't balanced even at that moment. He's like, yeah, I know. I hope it would make up for it by freeing you. And it's like, dude, oh man, he's so like, again, it goes back to that manipulation that he has. And he's such a good villain.
Yes.
But he's so good. So then next we get obviously Marc's back and Khonshu comes. Then he immediately takes Khonshu back because he has to because he's got bullets in his body. We see the bullets come out. I kind of loved the whole like slow motion suit coming back up, like him pulling his sleeve down. That little touch.
I was like, oh,
I know.
he's getting ready.
I know. I was like, it was beautiful to watch too and see the suit come out. But then we get more Marvel humor. I loved Marc and Steven talking to Khonshu. Marc letting Steven be the one to negotiate, and they're like, oh, we're a package deal now. Because what does Khonshu say? Something like, I wasn't talking to you, Steven. He's like,
I was talking Little Worm or something like that.
Yeah. So, Michael, how did you kind of feel about this newfound relationship with Marc and Steven and the fact that they're just back and forth and Marc's like, you negotiate with Khonshu. Have fun.
I think Josie said this, and it's a nice bookend after them being so, in conflict and against each other. They've come to accept, that they can separate, that they're a package deal, as you said. So it's nice to see that back and forth and how that back and forth actually pays off in this episode, because there's a lot of fighting and, with those two needing, to share the scene, it's nice how they can split it. And I don't know, is that going too far?
No, that's fine. No, that's coming up. So yeah,
they switch suits a lot, and then it's nice to see them retain that personality. Like, there's the funny Marc who's inexperienced at fighting, and then you can see the roughness and the toughness and grittiness of Marc's. So yeah, it's nice to see how they can play along with that dynamic. And
yeah. Josie, how did you feel about that kind of that negotiation with Khonshu? But then even when they're about to leave and Steven's like, oh, Marc, you can take this one.
Definitely. I just felt it was very dynamic. It was something, it felt like I was waiting for it the entire season. So it was nice that, general thoughts on the episode. I like that everything had a nice payoff through and through. There were so many elements of this episode that just felt like a bookend to everything that we saw from beginning to end. And that moment specifically was just nice seeing them finally work together and just them realizing what each of them have as a strength and using that, which Steven is negotiating. Clearly, right. He's a good talker.
That scene, he's just sitting there with his legs crossed, like on a thing, like looking at Khonshu talking to him. I was like, I love Steven so much. It's so great. But then we get to what is probably one of the highlights. It's definitely one of the highlights, if not the best part of the episode, is we have the other avatar kind of dying and talking to Layla, and it's like, okay, listen, there's a whole lot of power here. What we need to do is we need to get Ammit, and we need to, bind her to a human, but we need more avatars. And then he dies, of course. So immediately what happens? She goes, oh yeah, I remember Taweret said I could be your avatar. So she calls to Taweret. Oh my God. That reveal when she walks out, first of all, Taweret being like, I have a costume in mind.
I have a fabulous costume. I wrote it down because she sounded so excited. She's like, you're going to love it. It's fabulous.
It's like an Edna thing.
Right. Oh, and then how about when she brings up her dad? I teared up a little.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
She's like, your dad would be so happy. Your dad would be so proud. I met him when I brought him to the Field of Reeds. I was like, oh, her dad went to the Field of Reeds. And like, and she kind of...
She knows he's at peace. Like, such a horrible ending to his life. Like, again, nice bookends. Such nice bookends. Such nice payoffs because...
They didn't forget. Yeah.
Yeah, at least she finally has that sense of security that her father is fine and taken care of.
Exactly. It's something that we definitely needed. So Michael, how did you feel about her learning about her dad, but then also about that costume?
So yeah, like as we were saying before, it's a nice sense of closure for her because, she was looking for that answer, trying to find out what happened to her dad and realizing what happened to her dad, how he died. So knowing that he's at the Field of Reeds and Tara telling it, it feels like it's just a nice way to end that story. We don't have to have any more mystery behind it, or hopefully we don't. But
and for them to sneak it in like a one-line thing was perfect. Like a quick moment. Let's give you that closure.
You don't need to dwell on it too much because it just extends the episode longer than it should be. So it's nice that it may have been quick, but at least we know we got our answer. So,
exactly.
But regarding the suit, it was just like, yeah, finally she gets a suit. I felt that she should have gotten a suit, and I don't know. I just, because I was just so enjoying the show, I wasn't thinking, oh, she's going to get a suit sort of thing. I was nicely surprised by how it all came through. So, and the suit looks amazing. So it just looks so much better on her than any other suit before.
It looks so cool, and I wasn't expecting it either. And I didn't even think about it when she's talking to Taweret about being her avatar. Like until Taweret was like, "I got a costume," I was like, "Hold on,
wait a minute." yeah, exactly.
And she walks up, she's like, and even like she looks cool at first, and then she with the wings, and you're just like, "What?" Josie, how did you feel?
I freaked out. I shed a tear. I loved her costume. I loved the reveal. Same thing happened to me as you. I was like, wait, a costume? What? And then they like make you wait for it just a bit. And you're like, okay. And then the reveal was so nice. And she does that thing, giving Wonder Woman a run for her money.
Yes!
And her hair, I love that they let her hair just natural and just perfect. And she's great. I love her. I will die for her.
I know she didn't need a mask or anything. Like it was perfect. And I love how like her wings are blades and she's got these like sword things with it's just so very cool. Now on the Marvel website, she does have a name. I don't think they dropped it in the movie, but it's the Scarlet Scarab, which I did a little research before we came on here. And there is a Scarlet Scarab in the comics, but it's like a dude and it's like so different from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of took that, and I love that name for her. I'm very excited, and the fact that they gave her a name on the Marvel website makes me hope that we know season 2 is coming, so maybe she'll be fighting alongside Moon Knight quite a bit. So, but I love the name. I was like, that's perfect. I like that a lot. But so of course we have Moon Knight / Mr. Knight fighting, which is what Michael was talking about. It's the back and forth, and like you have this strength, I have this strength, and I loved that. And they're fighting Harrow. And at the same time, Khonshu and Ammit are fighting, which is really, really fun. It's tons of action. Michael, how did you kind of feel about these guys fighting before Layla shows up? And then it's all over. But I loved it.
I loved it too. I don't want to say kaiju because kaiju is a Japanese thing, but just to see those giant monsters.
It felt very much like kaijus. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just like, wow, they can throw that in, and then the way the camera moves, or like with the way that it was all framed, you can see the monsters fighting there. Then you can see the fighting, Moon Knight and Layla fighting. It was just incredible to see that two interact with each other in a way that would normally be like, oh, we're going to focus here, and then we're going to focus here.
Yeah.
Now we're going to give everybody their chance to shine, certain things. So yeah, it was great. I loved it.
I thought it was great. Kaiju was immediately what I thought. The same exact thing I thought. It's a kaiju vibe.
What's the
like
equivalent?
that's what they were.
Wonder, yeah.
That was their inspiration. Very.
Yeah, that was their inspiration.
Godzilla, right?
Yeah.
It's what it felt like to me. Josie, how did you feel about just all this action in this episode? And it was kaijus, right?
Yeah, it was very well handled. And I had a lot of group chats making jokes that like, oh, they can take on Kong. And I'm like, we're getting into this now.
Yeah, there you go.
But I thought it was appropriate in seeing like Ammit and Khonshu fighting simultaneously to Harrow and Moon Knight, and how sometimes when one of them would fall, the other would be affected. I thought that balance was also interesting to see because it raised the stakes and you were like, what's going on? So I thought it was very well handled.
Yeah, I loved it. I love the street. I love a good street level fight too, which is always fun. And so it's one of the things I loved about Hawkeye was all the street level fighting. So I was happy to see a lot of that involved in here. But when Layla arrives, like I loved her interaction with like Steven and Marc. Like it was Marc and then it was Steven. He's like, oh, you look great. Like I loved that. I thought it was great. Michael, how did you feel about kind of their conversation real quick before they really got into fighting when Layla showed up?
I thought it was funny. Just going to make this quick. It was just funny to see them like, okay, I'm going to talk first. And then, okay, Marc, now you can talk. So you can share your thoughts on, Layla having her suit and, being a badass fighter now. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's true Marvel, right? They sneak in little things that make you giggle. Josie, how did you feel about that little moment?
Yeah, she definitely added a nice layer, and it just brought everything to like a very nice mix that was just right.
Mm-hmm. And then one of my favorite moments during the fighting. So of course, Layla, like, she's always been a badass fighter, right? We've seen that, we know that. But she like stops a car, just stops it, and then like rips the door off. You're like, oh dang, she's like crazy powerful. And she holds her own. She uses those things as shields. She uses them as weapons. But when the little girl is watching and is like, are you an Egyptian superhero? And she's like, I am. I was like, yes. Oh, I know the representation. Just to have that little moment was so great. So great. Michael, how did you feel about that moment?
I mean, I had to admit I was a little bit tired during watching this because I had done so much before. But when I heard that line, when I saw that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm not Egyptian myself or anything like that, but it's just to hear that word of affirmation, just to see that confirmation that there can be Egyptian superheroes really set the standard of or raise the bar too. So yeah,
I love that Marvel did it.
It was just a little moment. I loved it.
Right, it was a little moment. It was like one line, but it was so important and so meaningful. I think in the little girl's face watching her, I loved it. Josie, how did you feel about that moment?
I wrote it down because I was hoping we'd mention it because it's just so good. And some people might say it was cheesy. I'm not lactose intolerant. I love cheese. I'm good. I love scenes like that. I love scenes like that, especially with Layla, because of course, an Egyptian superhero and MCU, and it's just this beautiful, capable, strong woman, and like, yes.
I know, it's so great. That was probably one of my favorite moments of the entire. It's a small moment, but it's not a throwaway moment. It's a very, very important moment. And I'm so glad they included that. But then the fight continues. And this part, one of my favorite scenes that just stuck out at me. And it's kind of like what we were talking about before, Michael talking about everyone being on screen. But it's with Ammit kind of taking Moon Knight's like staff, I guess you would call it, and stabbing him with it while Harrow's like stabbing. It's Marc at the time. I think it's Marc at the time. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's Marc. It's like with his staff at the exact same time, and you see it all, and you're like, you think this is game over. But just that scene and the way it goes, like the cinematography is even amazing. The visuals. Josie feels like she loved it. What do you have to say about that moment?
I loved it because we were talking about it last time, where I just remember having that conversation with my friends that we were all like, wait, because people were like, has Jake Lockley been here the entire time?
I know. Right.
And then, like we were mentioning, maybe at the beginning, those cuts, since we always know when Marc and Steven are going back and forth, but then those random cuts that we didn't know what was going on, it was like, has he been here the entire time? So when I saw that, I was like,
yeah, it's
yes!
like here, and then it's like, and you get those cuts, and I was immediately like, oh, this is gonna be Jake. Like, this is it.
Yeah, but also something that I wrote down, I decided to watch the recap this morning, just, I guess, to wake myself up to prepare for the episode. And during the recap, they teased Jake. So at that moment, I was like, oh, it's happening.
I know, finally, right? I mean, because you never know anything from the comics. You don't know that they're going to bring it into the show. But it felt like we knew there was a third. I mean, there's the third sarcophagus in the asylum. Like, there's got to be something else coming. And so, Michael, how did you feel about just the flash, 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 and then everyone's down, and even Layla's kind of like, Marc, what the heck was that? You know?
So yeah, being in that, you know, it's in my tired state. I was just like, wait a minute, did I just see something? Like, you know, did I see that right?
Rewind.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm testing my own mind. I'm like, wait, is this happening? Am I on the right plane of reality? But yeah, I was just thinking, like, no way, they're going to introduce Jake. So yeah, I loved it. It was just a nice way to kind of trick people who just are either tired or just are don't know the material basically as well. So it was nice to see how they can throw that unexpected surprise into the episode.
It felt, I like how they addressed it, because they did before, I think it was episode 3, when they were like, that wasn't me, was that you? That wasn't me. But they didn't really trust each other then yet.
Yeah.
Whereas this time it was
narrative.
like, right, exactly. And this time it was like, wait, Steven, that wasn't you, was it? Like, they immediately believed each other, right? Where before it was kind of like, yeah, you probably were the one. Like, I don't think they had fully trusted each other yet. But for it to be such a quick thing, like, they moved immediately on, like, okay, well, we've got stuff to do. Layla's all, I know we need to bring Harrow. Like, we know what we need to do to Harrow. And this is obviously where they're going to bind. I mean, you immediately know that's where they're going to bind Ammit to Harrow's body. But I love how they kind of passed over Jake, just because of what they give us later, which we will get to. But I thought that was perfect. And that was very smart storytelling. But Josie, how did you feel when they're sitting there kind of binding Harrow and Ammit together, and then Marc, again with the choices and saying no, says, I'm not going to kill him, you do it yourself.
Yeah, I thought, again, perfect payoff for his character. Leads us to believe, like, oh, this is the end, because we need to believe that this story is over just to make way for a new one. So I liked feeling a conclusion. Yeah, because it definitely felt like we were getting a conclusion to a story. And even if it continues, I at least want to know that, like, that security that, yes, a story has a beginning and an end. And it was nice seeing him evolve throughout the season. And just, again, it's just perfect for his character development, just perfect storytelling and perfect character writing.
Yeah, Michael, how did you feel about him putting his foot down to Khonshu and saying, I'm not going to kill Harrow?
I thought it was, as Josie said, it's a nice bookend. Finally, he's able to make his own decision, basically, because, you know, he was so driven by staying true to Khonshu's mythology and everything like that. Yeah. So for here, we get to see, you know what, I've been doing it your way for so long. Now it's time for to listen to me. This is the best way to handle this. That's what I liked.
I loved that. And then when he's like, you got to release us. And then that's when everything went crazy again, because the second Khonshu releases Marc and Steven, he's back in the asylum talking to Harrow. And you're like, what is happening? What is the truth? I don't know. But the two of them, again, they're back and forth. They're having this conversation with each other outside of their body, which is super interesting. And they see the blood on Harrow. And that's when they kind of realize maybe this isn't the truth. Like, this sounds great, but no. And then they're in their own bed. But Josie, how did you kind of feel about that moment? Were you like, are you kidding me? We're back in the asylum.
I was so confused, but I was like, okay, you've gotten me this far. I'm along for the ride.
I know. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Michael, I know you've been kind of unreliable narrative, which you love. But
Yeah.
how did you feel about, oh, we're in the asylum?
What a way to go back to the asylum. It's like, why are we doing this again? I'm not under the frustrating way. It's like, oh my gosh, we're back here. Like after, spending so much time getting out of it, now we're back in it, and you want to draw me back in, sort of thing. But I liked it. It was fun and confusing, and yeah, it was a nice way to keep things within that world and how this world works, because it's not so much that it's in the MCU. It feels like a separate entity. So it's nice to see how they continue to play along with that.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. One of my favorite parts is it's that Marvel humor. They throw in silly things as, they wake up in their house and Mark's like, how do you live like this, Steven? Gets up out of bed and then falls because his ankle is shackled to the bed still. That part I thought was hilarious. I really liked that ending. Like, okay, this is great. They're back there. They're in their house or their flat or whatever. It's Steven's house, I guess, technically. But Josie, how did you feel kind of about if this was the end? Let's not talk about the end credit, but like this ending of them being in the bed at home and it's kind of all wrapped up, sort of.
Yeah, I will say I felt a little bit deflated with the end because it was so abrupt.
Yeah, I felt sad about. I feel like there was no goodbye to Layla. I was upset about that.
Yeah, but at least like there is that comfort then that we might get a season 2, that she might come back, and yeah, it was very abrupt. I was like, oh, so then I just skipped to the end credit because also you gave us that tease. I'm like, I need to know. I don't want it to be another Mephisto. Right. I need to know.
Mephisto. Oh boy. Michael, how did you feel about the end of the episode before we get the end credit? Did you feel like it was a good ending? Did you also feel it was abrupt?
The way it transitioned, basically, I liked it. It's again, it just stays true to the theme of the show. Yeah. Switches back and forth. But yes, it was abrupt because there's so many things that happened beforehand that we need to know. Again, we don't know what happened. Like we don't know what happened in the during the transition scenes between Marc and Steven in the earlier episodes. Now we don't even know what's going on in between those last few moments in this episode. So I just wish I want to see what's missing. I want to see what's filling in those gaps. I wish we got to see Layla say a goodbye, or at least for this episode, like give it know that she's okay, basically. And,
right. Last episode she's standing next to him over Harrow's body. Like if she decided to keep the costume, because she said, oh, I'm your temporary avatar.
Yeah, that's the thing.
She has to have kept it. It was so cool. That costume was awesome. She better have kept it.
So knowing that what happens when you keep an avatar, as Josie was saying, I want to know, because now she kept not kept it, but she had it for a bit. But now does she keep it, or does her avatar like just say, you know what, I'm in possession of you and that's it? So I want to know.
We'll find out in season 2. That's why they said changed it from a series to a season.
Also, I don't think Taweret with her note cards and bubbly personality would hold her against her will. So I'd like to believe that if she chose not to, it's fine. But I feel like she'll probably be again like, yo, Taweret, bestie, can I have the costume again?
Right. I feel like she'll call her quite a bit. If she doesn't like full on remain her avatar, I think she'll be there for her in moments where she needs her, type of thing. That's my thought. I don't know. I just adore. I love Layla and I love Taweret, so having them like together makes me so very happy. But that wasn't the end of the episode, because we got the most crazy, most incredible, finally we get confirmation end scene that we have gotten. I love that it starts off with Harrow like in an asylum himself. You're like, that's what happens. Like he's in a hospital, but still, like, he's all like whatever. And then someone comes and you can't see who they are, and they're like, we'll take him. I'll take him. And I was like, that's totally Oscar Isaac, right? You're trying to watch, you see glimpses of like a mouth and like a cheek, and I know everyone is like me, right? Staring at the screen like, is that Oscar Isaac? That's gotta be Oscar Isaac. But which Oscar Isaac is it? And brings him out to a limo with Khonshu inside. And Khonshu, which was
on his way to the Met Gala.
Right, yes.
A sharply dressed Khonshu, as I'm going to say.
He was, I know. he was fancy. And he's all like, oh, like, you can't touch me. I mean, that's not really how Harrow said it, but, you know, he was more like, I know you can't do anything because you don't have an avatar. And he's like, the funny thing is, I forget exact words, but like, you know, Marc and Steven thought like I needed them, but why would I need, or why I needed Layla? Why would I need someone else? By the way, meet my friend, Jake Lockley. And everyone's like, finally, they said his name. This is confirmation. The thing comes out and he's just like, pew, 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 shoots him. And and he's speaking Spanish. And it's just like, that moment was like confirmation. This is incredible. Give me season 2, like tomorrow, please. Josie, how did you feel about finally?
I loved it.
Jake Lockley.
Of course, horrible character because he's the most violent of all of them. A lot of people made their theories that he was probably the received most of the abuse.
Yeah.
Which could lead to him being so violent and translating that into his actions. So of course, this is someone we have to fear. But after getting so many teases throughout the season, it was nice finally getting something that we were speculating. Because throughout these other shows, everyone's always been speculating, especially like the letdown with some people. I didn't mind the whole Quicksilver thing, but of course, some people were.
I didn't mind that either. I thought that was hilarious. Ralph Boner is like my favorite character in the MCU.
I didn't mind, but with this one, I wanted to see it just because it would have elevated his performance, and the fact that they let him speak Spanish. As soon as he started speaking Spanish, I was like, "This is Jake. Este es Jake. Él está aquí, and we're happy."
Oh my gosh. It's so crazy to think that technically Oscar Isaac had like 5 characters in this, because if you count Moon Knight and Mr. Knight as characters, like just give him all the awards. He's so great.
I hope he gets at least
a nomination. At least. But I mean, considering I don't know who he'll be up against, but I feel like, I mean, he is so phenomenal in this. He had episodes where he's literally playing opposite himself constantly. So hopefully he gets a nomination. But Michael, how did you feel about this end credit scene?
I loved it. As you were talking about earlier, just to see, is that a jaw? Is that his cheek or anything? Is that Jake Lockley? Just to see, there was this moment where you see this jawline, and I'm like, wow, Oscar Isaac has a really nice jawline.
Yes, the internet will agree with you.
I had to pause it and just like, you know what? This is the jawline I want. So.
Right. You're like, Oscar, let's talk. How did you?
Michael was like, I know that jawline. I can spot it.
That's why
in the crowd.
I was thinking about a lineup. It's like, this is the lineup you have to look at. It's like, yep, that's Oscar Isaac.
Number 5, please step forward.
But it was nice to see, a confirmation, as we were saying, of Jake Lockley. And just, oh my gosh, after seeing everything that we've been watching, all that speculation, just see that payoff. It was great to, it was great to see that payoff.
It was just done in such a wonderful way. Like, because earlier I was a little annoyed how they like mention it, but then they kind of, like I said, brushed it aside, sort of. Obviously, they had stuff they had to do. Harrow's knocked out. Like, let's get this taken care of while we can. But it was like, oh, I wish they would confirm Jake. But this was the way to do it. Absolutely. There's so many moments where I was annoyed they didn't mention Jake by name, but this was the way to confirm, reveal, whatever you want to call it. It was done so well. What do you think, Michael?
So, yeah, you were mentioning about what Khonshu was saying. I think he also said something to the lines of, Marc or Steven doesn't know how troubled of a mind he has, or something like, right. So I was like, oh, we know. And then he lowers the window, and we see Jake. So I just had to throw that in.
Yeah, because I remember some people were speculating that in the asylum scene, when he kind of like switches accents and he's still Marc, people were like, is that Jake? And I think the director had said, no, like, nah, you guys, he's not there, blah, blah. But it would make sense because he was still in the sarcophagus, so they don't know about him.
Right.
So seeing that,
and we did see that
like, the way it goes, it's because they don't know about him. So whenever he shows up, he's just like, hey.
Right, exactly. I don't think we've never seen until this moment actually a Jake. We've only seen the aftermath, right? Yeah. So that is why I was kind of like, I don't think that's it. Like, I get the speculation, but for me, I feel like we wouldn't have seen it as an audience because at this moment we're going through Marc and Steven's perspective.
Which brought me security, because a lot of the moments when they did those switches at the beginning, since we didn't know, I was like, this feels like we're missing something, like they're taking us away from something. At least that's how I felt. And now
you were saying that for the early on, you felt that way, yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, okay, at least it had a purpose, and it would like a very important purpose, and the satisfaction of getting that payoff is like, okay, like again, it's just, I like how neat this season was. Like when you look back, it's like, yes, all the chef's kisses.
Right. Well, that's exactly how I feel, because as much as I love the other MCU shows, I feel like the finales were constantly dropping the ball and not tying certain things up. You're like, well, why wouldn't this happen? This doesn't make sense. You didn't address this. And sometimes it was because of COVID. They had to edit stuff. I know Falcon and the Winter Soldier got completely redone.
I remember, the most I remember about Falcon is that they were going to film in Puerto Rico, and then they had to scrap that entire storyline because of the earthquake. So that one specifically, I know it suffered so much.
It did. And then they had the whole vaccine, which was supposed to be like the government released this virus, and then COVID came and they were like, maybe we shouldn't go that route. Let's change things around. So unfortunately for them, there's obviously some great storylines there, but a lot of it got dropped. And I feel like Moon Knight, for me, this finale solidified it as my favorite. Very close. It's like WandaVision, Loki, and Moon Knight are all so close.
The three of them just are just happy.
Right, exactly. But this one, for me, I felt like it actually tied up everything I wanted it to tie up, while also leaving me excited for season 2 and seeing where we can really go with a season 2. Michael, how did you feel about this season overall, and where does it rank among the MCU shows for you?
I think it has to be literally the top 3, between, like you were mentioning, Loki and WandaVision. WandaVision was just so incredible. It's really set the standard, and Loki raised the bar, and now you get to see Moon Knight either raising the bar or just like meeting up with where Loki did it. So it was great. I liked how it dropped these small hints that it may or may not be within the MCU. Overall, it just stayed, it concentrated on its particular characters without having to tie into anything else. And I like not having to worry, how will this affect it, or how will this affect it? No, they just say Madripoor. It's like, okay, Madripoor. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't talk about overall like major characters or anything like that. And that's what I liked, how we just focused on its own story. So
it didn't need it. It didn't need cameos. It didn't need tie-ins. It was like, here you go. This is what's happening. I loved that about this show. Josie, how did you feel about the season overall?
Yeah, I definitely liked getting something so self-contained, and something that I had mentioned in episode 4, I think it solidified it as something that ages well. With rewatch, like it has a lot of rewatchability factor, because you start picking up on those things. And I like when shows do that. I like when you can watch it again and just find something new. So, but I can't, you can't make me choose. I think WandaVision is my one, and Moon Knight and Loki are tied for second place.
I know. For me, it's also like any given Sunday for the 3 of them too. You know what I mean? It's like, what would I rewatch today? I'd rewatch all of them until I died. Like, I have no problem rewatching them. I think I've watched WandaVision now probably 10 times, at least certain episodes. So there's so much. It's hard, but it's nice when the MCU hits. It's nice for it to hit with these shows, and this one. I mean, we know Loki, we're getting a season 2 also. So I'm just I'm so excited. Yes. I know, it's so good. It's so good. So hopefully we'll be back with an after show for Moon Knight season 2. Who knows when it'll be? It's probably, we're looking at least a year, but I don't care. I'm very excited. More Oscar Isaac as all the personas. I just adore him. So before we wrap this up, why don't you guys give us your favorite part of this episode and your favorite part of the series as a whole? Josie, you want to go first?
Okay, I think I'm just off the top of my head. The costume reveal for Layla.
Yeah, as all together, this episode and the series.
This episode, I think the series as a whole.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. Just gonna go with the first one that comes to me, which is again when Oscar Isaac as Marc arrives at the Field of Reeds.
Yeah. Oh, I know, that's such a great. Oh, Michael, how about you?
For this particular episode, it's the confirmation that there can be other heroes. Like she said, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?"
Yes.
So, and then she said, "Yeah." That just to hear that, for other people that watch it and everything like that, especially Egyptian girls that are enjoying this, just to hear that those words, it was great. For the whole entire series, though, I think the last episode 5 pretty much encapsulated everything because you get the action, but here this is something deep, emotional, and you get to see great character work on display between Oscar Isaac, who's playing 2 characters. It was that whole episode have to be my favorite moment. So yeah.
I know there's so much. It's very, very hard for me just to be different because I would have said Layla's costume reveal probably. I'll say the confirmation of Jake Lockley for this episode.
Yeah.
Technically an end scene. Like that was just like, finally we have confirmation. And then as the season as a whole, it's so hard. But probably I wish I could just say Steven. Like, can I just say Steven?
Yes.
Because he's so amazing.
You've been giving him hugs this whole season.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe just the scene where he goes like, my goldfish, and they're like, you came here. You asked for a new one. It's like,
what are you talking about? I don't care what Nemo taught you. They have 2 fins. I was like, oh my god.
And then we get more goldfish this episode too. So
I know. I was like, oh, there's 2 in there now. I just listen. Steven was like, I just adore him. He's my favorite part of the series. And I love Oscar Isaac as Mark too. And Layla's great. It's so hard to pick, but I'm going to say Steven. Yeah. And then this one, in terms of ranking with the other episodes, I still think, like Michael said, I think the episode before this was my favorite episode of the season, but this one was so good. And in terms of Marvel finales, really pulled it off. Josie, where does this episode rank for you among the season?
I ranked them all just in case you'd ask. So
you came prepared.
Yeah, I have it number 1, number 5, then 6, 4, 1, 3, 2.
Okay, so kind of smack in the middle-ish.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael? What do you think?
Wait,
just where would you rank this one in terms?
I would rank this around number 3 as well, because number 5, again, like I said, it was just more character work and you get to understand the characters. And number 1 basically was an introduction, a wonderful introduction. So episode 6 would have to be placed at 3rd. So yeah,
I think I'm right along with you guys. I agree. Episode 5 was so important to the series, and of course, episode 1 is so important to the series, especially as Josie pointed out, when you can look back and see everything that you've learned now at the end. Exactly. It's so important. Marvel's so good at what they do. They know what they're doing. And that's it for us, guys. That is a wrap on the after shows for Moon Knight season 1. I'm going to miss talking to you guys every week.
Pat on the back for you.
I know. Good job, us. Good job, us. Hopefully you all enjoyed our show as well. And hopefully we'll be back for season 2. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell, make sure you do so. There's after shows for pretty much every show you can think of. Lots of fun here on the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube channel. My name is Tessa Smith. You guys can find me everywhere at Mama's Geeky, mamasgeeky.com, here on YouTube, on all social media. I'm trying TikTok again. I don't like TikTok, but I'm trying it again. I'm trying to do it. So I do have my thoughts up real quick, spoiler free on this episode, but you guys were hanging around here. You probably don't need to hear them, but they're there on TikTok. Michael, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you?
Yes, so I am Michael J. Lee. You can find me at I am Michael J. Lee on all socials. Like Tessa was saying, I also am trying to figure out TikTok, but basically you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at that handle. And I also write for That's It LA, The Nerds of Color, We Live Entertainment, and you can find all my writing over there. So
awesome. And Josie, look, she's prepared.
Wow, she's like, yes.
You can find me at the Josie Marie on Twitter and Letterboxd. You can also follow Film Posers at Film Posers practically everywhere. Also, Tessa, thank you, because you did such a great job hosting this. And can't wait to do this again with you guys.
I know, this was so fun. I loved talking with you guys. And a thank you to Andrea, who couldn't make it today.
Yes.
But you guys can find her everywhere. She's like underscore Andrea Towers, I think. I'm pretty sure she has an underscore
A-Towers,
there.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
A-Towers. Just search Andrea Towers and you'll find her. Look, I'm the worst. I know it. I follow her. I don't know. I haven't memorized, but she couldn't make it, unfortunately, today. But yeah, we will see you guys. Hopefully she'll be back with us for season 2. And thanks for watching, guys. You guys let us know your favorite parts in the comments from this episode.